Okay, good evening. Welcome everyone to special closed session. Thank you. Let's try that again. Good evening and welcome everyone to the special closed session meeting of Monday, August 28th, 2023. Call the meeting to order at 5:59 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Claudia Arona, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Here.
Mayor Infante.
Here. David, if you'd lead us, please.
Stand at attention, face the flag, put your hand over your heart, and say with me, I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's time to mute the phones. I don't know whose that was, but I don't care. Okay, Mr. Attorney, if you would introduce this closed session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council will be meeting in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 Subdivision D1 on a matter of existing litigation. The City of Solvang's petition to change water right permit 15878 under application A022423 under protest by California Trout and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's National Marine Fisheries Service and comment by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Okay, at this point in time, we will go to closed session. session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1, on a matter of pending litigation in the Solvang's petition to change the water rights permit under Permit 15678. There was no reportable action.
Thank you, sir. In that case, closed session is now closed. Well, so, we have our city manager around. Good evening. Regular Monday meeting, August 28th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 PM. Roll call, please, Ms. Clerk.
Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Claudia Arona, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Here.
Mayor Infante.
Here.
Thank you.
Robert, if you would lead us, please, in the pledge.
Please stand. Place your right hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we do not have any proclamations or commendations to go into. We have one presentation, the Tourism Marketing Consultant Update. What happened to our Randy?
He may have gone to.
Is that going to be you, John? Well, would you like to please step up and give us an update on what's going on?
Well, I think by this time I don't need an introduction. You guys all know me, so it's nice to see you all again. And my comments are going to be rather brief tonight. We're kind of right in the middle of everything, but I'll also have Claudia and Rick join me from my team. They'll talk about the website and give you an update there, and then Claudia will talk to you about the social media efforts that we're doing along with Islet. When Rick comes on the call, he'll provide you, as I said, with an update on the website. I'm happy to say that we're ahead of schedule. We originally had proposed between a 3 and 4 month distance between a new website, and we're going to deliver it to you in 3 months, not 4.
Good.
And if you do the math, that'll be toward the end of about this time next month. So in my presentation that I'll be doing as a monthly presentation, I'll be talking about the website, and we'll have a more formalized presentation, so you'll be able to take a look at it. And we'll either be live by that time or pretty close to it. So, and Rick can give you a few more details. But in the meantime, we've also been trying to utilize the present site, making sure that we are able to post the events that you have, what they're coming up that are very important. And so when we do come back, we'll have that presentation for you. Also, at that meeting, I'll be sharing with you some ideas that we will have for our fall advertising campaign, which is part of our contract. And I'll share with you what our tactics are going to be there and kind of identify the media. And then shortly thereafter that presentation, we will be doing a fall campaign, and it'll support the, your events coming up, and also it will be directed toward lodging, trying to get people to stay in the properties and increase your TOT. And Claudia will tell you about, she's been working on their Pinterest account that we formulated for you, managing crowd drift, which is a third-party postings of photos and stories, and she'll talk about that more. Also, I attended the Visit San Ynez meeting with both Randy and Anna. Learned a lot about co-op opportunities that will be coming your way through that organization, and so we got to meet everybody, and it was a nice meeting. And speaking of Anna, we were able to put together some B-roll footage, just basically raw footage for an opportunity that she had for PR. And she reached out to us, and we were able to get a film crew here in a couple days. And since we were doing that, I decided that I would go ahead and edit a small little video for you to take a look at. Keep in mind, this is a series of videos. It's not just all-encompassing. It's difficult in 2 minutes to capture everything that's wonderful and great in the town, but it does give a nice little overview, and we thought since we had the footage, we'd go ahead and utilize that. And this will go on the website. Also, that same film crew I've lined up to cover Danish Days as well as Yulefest, so we'll have fresh footage that we can use for social media and for the website in the future. So without further ado, I'll show you the video. It's short, but it's encompassing. That's it.
What happens when you get non-technical guy working this stuff? Have audio?
Those are not effects.
Yeah,
The actual video was much better. Unfortunately, there's apparently converting it to this format had a problem, so the video itself was great.
I've always had difficulty showing videos in various meetings, so don't feel bad. But what I can do is, I'm sure Randy will provide you with a link so you can see it on your own computer. But again, it's just a nice little overview of the things that people can see and experience here when they're here. And we'll be making more of those as time goes on. Video is a very effective way to get people to respond to your advertising. And also that footage was made available to your social media team as well as to Anna for her uses as well. So. And with that, I'll bring my team on if I can. I'll start with Claudia, and she can give you a little overview on the social media part, and then we'll hear from Rick.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Hi. Perfect. Okay, so as John mentioned, we're going to have our next e-blast go out tomorrow. It was approved by Randy today, and it features upcoming local events, including insider tips such as wine tasting, outdoor activities, and midweek travel. And it also gives more information on Danish Days, the Solvang Festival Theater, a general lodging push, and follow us on social media with respective icons so people can click directly on the different icons and give us a follow. As John also mentioned, we are continuing to repurpose assets on Pinterest, and we're using the new photos from Karen to make pins and link back to our website. And we're also using CrowdRiff. We published our first local hood story on the bakeries of Solvang, which has generated over 7,500 impressions from Google Search and Discover and has had over 500 link clicks and a 45% completion rate. And we are also continuing to work on creating the website galleries, which will be embedded into the new site, and requesting rights to user-generated content on CrowdRiff. So that's an update from me, and I can pass it on to Rick for a website update as well.
Good evening, everyone. So what we've been doing is, normally what we have for you in your packet would be a website set report, and I would be talking about that now. But since you didn't have that in your packet report, I'll go back really quickly on a couple of the July numbers that we have for you. One of the things we like to do is always talk about what the ROI of your website would be, and that's in terms of how much lodging sales it could create and how much TOT those lodging sales would create. So if I just took a look at the July numbers of lodging referrals from your website to the lodging hotels, you come up with about 3,200 referrals. Now what we do is we apply some math to that. We have what's called a look to book ratio, how many people come onto that website, we have a tendency to book, and we have a conversion rate, and that makes a conversion rate, and we have a length of stay of 2 nights. What's the average daily room rate? And you multiply all that out, and just those 3,200 would probably collect about $500,000 in lodging sales and about $60,000 in TOT. That's a pretty conservative number. We'll get a little bit better as we're more familiar with how everything works in your city as far as the average daily room rates and the occupancy rates. So one of the things that the stats also tells me is that how many people come on your website via mobile user. And right now you're at 70% and growing, and I'm sure when we bring all the teams' social media onto board, that'll go up. That's what we've had with our other clients. So one of the main challenges I have is how to design the site for mobile users. If you take a look at your current things to do page, that's really the top most viewed page on your website besides the homepage. That's a really presented a challenge, because what you had is you had 8 rows of 2 columns. Now, if you stack all that up in a mobile device, you have 16 rows. 16 rows really goes against best practices on mobile, which is about 3 to 4 horizontal page swipes. That comes up about 10 to 12 page swipes. So that was my challenge of how I had to confront that, and you'll see that what we came up with, a very innovative way of producing a page that can consolidate all that and make some sense on a mobile device, and you'll see that when we come up with and show you how the site's coming out finally. And like John said, we're looking at sometime in the last 2 weeks of September, we should be ready to go. So unless you have any questions, that's all I've got for you.
Questions, anybody? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. At this point, we're looking for public communications. Do you have any public communications that are for items not on the agenda? Thank you. Denise Elamine?
Hi, I'm Denise Elamine, and I'm here to talk about a couple things. Skid Mesa, I live in Skid Mesa, and we're the only development in the city of Solvang, and I do believe the entire valley that has an LLMD. And what an LLMD is, it is a tax that we're charged to have beautified landscaping in our development. And I've owned my home since 2014, and so I'm here today requesting that the city council put this on the agenda for discussion so you guys can get a better understanding of how we're being double taxed. We pay into the general fund, and we also pay this extra LLMD tax. And you guys are raising our rates. You don't have the authority. So I'm trying to make sure that the city council understands this process before we proceed forth, and then we'll have to go through legal channels there. So I'm asking that the city council would put this on a future discussion agenda so that you guys can become aware of what the LLMD means in Skid Mesa. Number 2, and I don't think it's on the agenda. Well, it is. It's on the consent, so I have to talk. It's about the graffiti that I've complained about in Solvang, that it's been there on the ex-bank building. And I went to the...
Consent. General public is for consent as well.
She's right.
I'm sorry,
right.
this is for an agenda item?
Nope, it's consent.
consent
I'm
item.
in the right
I'm sorry.
place. I've been
Please,
here.
go
I
ahead.
know what I'm doing. So this is the abatement for the graffiti, and it's on the consent item. So I've gone and I've requested this because I don't feel it's right that you guys have hired people to go and police people putting extra signs outside of their buildings, and then you let graffitis that's been out there for over a year on a building, and you are not paying that any mind. So I am hoping that you guys do the consent so that you can get this graffiti abatement and get the graffiti off of the walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elamine. Do we have anybody else in-house that would like to speak on the general items, not on the agenda? Do we have anybody on Zoom that wants to speak? Are you speaking on general items, not on the agenda?
I think it's on the agenda. You're going to be addressing pickleball?
No, it's not on the agenda. If you want to speak, please step to the stand and talk to us.
It's on
Oh, the CIP. Yeah, you're right. I apologize. That's part of the, yes, it is part of one of the agenda items. Well, yes, please.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay. Are we going, Anna, are you going to present to us? My apologies. Randy doesn't tell me anything.
Mine will be fast, but Jamie and Leanna, I definitely want them to present. And Sue is here as well from the Visitor Center in case you have any questions about the Visitor Center report.
We have to get him some training.
Okay. So you've seen pretty much all of this before. I just did a 3-month recap to match Jamie and Leanna's report because they're also doing the 3 months that we've been under contract. So we did the first press release in May. That was just about summer events. That was a very overarching listing what was going on over the summer months, ending with Danish Days. Visit Santa Ynez Valley. Obviously, I'm always in touch with them, but they know that I became their Solvang liaison for now. Central Coast Tourism Council, same thing. Visit Santa Barbara, same thing. And Visit California, and we are still working on this influencer visit with them. That will be happening over Danish Days weekend, actually right before Danish Days weekend. So I can report about that in October. We booked, and this is through Central Coast Tourism Council, we booked the Phoenix Magazine ad, and that is running right now. So we should have hard copies of that in a few days. That's in their September-October issue. And again, that was a co-op with other Central Coast destinations or attractions, so we get a better rate. Okay, Los Angeles Times, you all know about this. So these are just some very basic stats. I use different platforms to track some of the press coverage. So these numbers are along the bottom, very arbitrary, but these are from what's called Coverage Book, which is actually a company based in the UK. So it says on this particular link, I go in and I plug in the link and it spits back these numbers. For this particular link, they say there was an estimated, based on algorithm, 41.8 thousand views of that particular page or that article. 43.6 million audience is really the audience of the outlet. It doesn't mean that that was the audience of that particular article, but obviously Los Angeles Times has a giant reach. 222 engagements, which then you'll see was broken down a little bit further, and that's really just when someone's actually physically sharing it, or the Facebook shares, and that's done through those little symbols on an article. So if I copy and paste this link and then put it on Facebook, it doesn't necessarily track that. But if I do it through the article, that's going to register here. And 3 Pinterest shares. The others must have been Twitter or X, whatever it's going by these days. So this was, again, just a recap of the Los Angeles Times. These were all of the businesses or attractions that were included in it. It was about 13 different, and a big mix of businesses that were included. Okay, so then we had influencer visit over SYV Pride weekend that we arranged for all of that. And then we also had Cal Euphoria that was here in late July and August. And the gals will give a full recap of that in September's report since he's still rolling out coverage. But as you've probably seen by the site, he's done collaborations where Solvang USA is resharing his stuff in real time. And they're doing phenomenally well. So that will be a good report. We put together this copy about having older kids or tweens or teens that we can use for whatever we want to use it for the new website, the old website, anything else. I talked about the highlights pitch at the last meeting. And then we talked about these Haro queries. So there haven't been a ton lately, and they're not always fabulous, but I go through them anyway. They come out 3 times a day through email. I can also go in Decision and look for them in advance of getting the emails. So I haven't had a lot of luck with the destination as a whole through that particular platform, but I also go and I pitch individual businesses. So it's always good to have Solvang out there, even if it's just the name mentioned somewhere. So these are just examples of when that happens. So like the American Express business class, I was working with the writer. He had 2 different stories going at once. I had originally pitched Burkholm's for one of them, didn't make the cut, but then Peasant's Feast was for a different one, and that one did make the cut. So these are articles, again, where usually the business is mentioned as being in Solvang, California, and then there's various links. Same Eat This, Not That. They were specifically looking for steakhouses in Las Vegas, and I happen to know that Michael, who owns Peasant's Deli, and Drew, who is now running the pop-ups at Brecky's, both worked in Vegas. So I knew that they had familiarity with that city. Visit California, I'll report on next month, but we did get the Elroy slipped into a piece that's going on their blog as well. Continued correspondence with Candace and Rick and everybody about the website. And then Chamber of Commerce, I talk to Tracy all the time, and with Sue for her reports and just general catch-up, asking questions about what they've been seeing and how things are going. Danish Days, I also sit in on all of those board meetings, so I've been trying to keep track of all of that as it gets closer and closer. And then the Central Coast Tourism Council, just little things here and there. So we had to annually update our listing on the site. So I was just doing that. And I can actually go back and get that further updated anytime that we want. August 3rd, the first YuleFest press release went out, and I was kind of rushing that one because we do have outlets with longer lead times that I wanted to get ahead of. Right now is really when we're starting to see all these calls, doesn't apply to us, but calls for like holiday gift guides. That's like the big thing right now. This week, everyone's talking about that. So it is full on. Everyone's looking for those holiday things, and I wanted to get that out there before we were too late. We'll do follow-up press blasts with more details as we have it about the event itself when we have all the pieces together. Leanna and Jamie, I talk to all the time. We're on a constant text string. So anytime they have questions about anything that they can't answer themselves, they will check in with me and see if I have a better answer. And if I can't answer it, then I go to somebody else who does have the information. Same with TJA. I've been working with them, obviously, quite a bit, but on these e-blasts in particular. And then I did find something out about Westways that I didn't realize. This past spring, 2023, there was an article specifically on Solvang in that issue. And the way Westways works, it's by zip code. So if you've ever had to go onto their site, if you're a AAA member and you have to type in your zip code, because their audience is broken down by zip codes. So our article about Solvang was in the spring issue of the one that we would get, like I would get as being a resident up here. But then that article gets rolled into other regional issues as well. So that is still going out to the other markets. So it already went to OC, and now it's going to San Diego. So that article kind of lives out there for pretty much a whole year as it cycles through all the different markets, which is really good exposure. These are just examples of manual calendar postings. Again, these are things that we don't have a robot that does it. I have to go in and actually manually post them to all of these event calendars. And that goes for all of our events. So that would be, I help Tracy with Scarecrow Fest and anything that we have going on, Danish Days, YuleFest. This next slide looking ahead, pretty much the same as you saw last time. And again, it's not super detailed. It's just kind of an idea of what it is that I would really like to put into press release format to put out there for copy purpose, if nothing else. And I'm still gathering information for fall. I don't have everybody's information yet on that. Meaning like waiting for the pumpkin patch to let me know what the plans are and when they're going to open and things like that. A sneak peek at August. August will have way more to report. We had a California Live segment that hit today. And John was talking about that emergency B-roll footage that we needed, and that was for that. I've been existing without all of the assets that I really need for years. It's nobody's fault. So we finally have that B-roll now on file that we can use when someone comes to me and says, I'm doing this live segment and we need to roll B-roll behind me. Now we have it. We also have ad space that we just booked also through Central Coast Tourism Co-op, and that is in the Visit California State Visitors Guide that comes out annually. So we'll go into that, which obviously it's important that we're there. Solvang was not there last year. California Bountiful TV, which is produced by the California Farm Bureau. they're going to come and do a segment shoot right after Thanksgiving, the week right after Thanksgiving. And they had their heart set on Solvang because they wanted to use that as the backdrop for the holiday segment, even though it's not directly tied to something farming or ag. It's still a lifestyle show. So she'll come do that. And I have to help set her up with different vignettes. And then I've been doing content submissions on Visit California's website for their use for media. Central Coast Tourism Council, I have to complete those this week for all of the fall events and attractions. And we have been getting better at highlighting the Solvang Festival Theater, as you requested. And actually, one of the musicians who's playing in October, a girl named Tom, the sister in that group actually emailed me directly. So I emailed her back. I said, I have a million questions for you. So anything I can do to help these bands, I'm offering up my help. If they need, just regional media coverage, if they're not familiar, if they don't have a manager doing that for them, I told them I'm here to help, even with hotels if they need that advice. Okay, and then Sue, do you want to do this? You want me to do it? Okay. So once again, Sue gave me her report from July, and it was down almost 1,000 as per their count, July year over year. We all have our theories as to why that is, but I put the quote in here from Sue directly. What she's hearing a lot of at the visitor center is that people are starting to pull back financially. They don't have the money that they had previously, especially with gas prices. We heard at the Visit SYB meeting earlier this month that the writers' strike definitely put a dent in our visitation from the Los Angeles market. And we were just talking about that. I mean, when you think about how that trickles down, like, okay, the writers go on strike, and now the production's on hold, so everybody else who's part of those teams has no job, and they're a little bit insecure about where money's going to come from. So that definitely seems to have hurt things. And then Sue also reported that they're seeing a lot of international travel obviously come back this way. So here was a list of all of these countries that they're tracking, and that a lot of that is from Israel. And so they've asked about why the people who are coming in from Israel. And so they're just basic comments in here. They tell us that they love to travel. They hear about Solvang from friends and family who have visited and in their personal travel research. And then she's hearing a lot of that this is a stop when people are doing a whole coastal road trip, which obviously a lot of people from out of the country do. And then there was a whole list, which I don't have pulled up, but she had a whole Word document that is in the agenda package that was all the inquiries, kind of the overarching inquiries they tend to receive on a frequent basis in the visitor center from January through July. So if you haven't taken a look at that, definitely do. There are definitely some takeaways in there and some things which inform our efforts as far as things that we should be highlighting more, maybe not so much, and more education about Solvang as a whole to visitors and its roots. And she's here if you have any questions for her as well. That's it.
Anybody have any questions?
I just have a comment, Anna. Thank you so much. And thanks for I know you put a lot of effort in the LA Times article, a lot. And it's good to see some metrics come out, even if they're algorithm driven. Just what's the results?
Yeah.
Also, I'm thankful that you included those, what questions get asked at the visitor center, because some insights can be, gathered. I'm sure you guys are all talking about those. My impression, one huge takeaway was, it feels like a lot of people are rushing through Solvang and not spending a day or two.
Mm-hmm. And actually, on the most recent reel that the Cal Euphoria account shared, I go through all those comments when I can. Sometimes there are just so many that I can't actually sit and sift through them all. I don't have the time. But there was one thread where people were actually arguing amongst themselves on the comments. And I did see a lot of that. Oh, Solvang, you only need an hour there. And it's frustrating to me because I've been trying to not only market Solvang as a whole for so many years, but also help market individual businesses in the area, that people still don't really do their research. Like, yeah, it only takes an hour if you don't actually know where you want to go or you haven't researched enough to know what's there. So, yes, that is something that we have to work on, but it's also, again, it's yes.
Talking about them rushing through. So what does happen a lot is we get a lot of people who come in and cannot believe how much we have here. and they can't believe how big it is. And a lot of them come in and think, oh, they say, I thought it was just like one street, and I thought we could do it in an hour. I had no idea you have all these museums and you have things to do besides just shopping and bakeries. People know we have bakeries, which is fantastic, and that's usually they want to come get a pastry on their way through. But then they find out that it is a lot bigger, there's a lot more, and so then I think they start thinking, we want to come back, and that's what we'll hear. We want to come back when we can stay longer. Or we have had people even who come in and want to know where they can stay because they thought they were only going to spend 2 hours or an hour and find out they want to stay. So yes, I think you're correct. They don't always do all the research to know how much we have here. Especially, I think they're really surprised to find out how many museums we have. And a lot of people love that we have these beautiful museums here. So it is a good thing when they come and find out that we have more than they think. So.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Sue, on the, on those questions that people are asking, is there something that we could tie into a FAQ type of thing on our website, or a top 10 list of rankings of things
I'm
that
sure we can
to do?
figure something out.
I'm
if-
just saying,
if you would
let's
like that.
convert that, make that education available.
Yeah, like the top 10 things that
Top 10
people are asking.
by
That
comments or whatever,
yeah, I'm sure that we can
Most,
put together
most
and-
popular.
and-
The hot
and
10.
set up.
Top 10 or the top 12, it really doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
something that helps, from this knowledge, let's collect that. And I think, too, with your international visitors, it's amazing. I mean,
I know.
you're right, I can barely walk down the street without hearing 3 or 4 different languages, none of which I understand, and that includes English. But so if there's something that we can gather from that international group, that would be great too. I don't know how that would be gathered, or maybe it's a QR code that Google's in their language or some such thing. I don't know. I leave it to your all in
Okay.
imagination, but thank you. This is enlightening.
Good. One thing we were talking about doing, so, sometimes it's really fast. We're just moving people in and out. Sometimes we have a little more time. We love it. We get to talk to people a little bit longer. So we're trying to come up as a team a goal of how many people we think we could take the time to ask when they come in, how they found out about Solvang. So we're kind of together going to realistically, how many can we do in a month? Because sometimes it is quick. But I think that information could be really helpful if we can, even if it's like 300 people in a month and we can do it over several months. So just find out from more people, why are they coming and how did they find out is the main thing we want to know. Is like, how did they find out about Solvang? Because that really plays into how we are marketing and what we can do to help push that information out there.
I know in other tourist areas, you might have a theater kind of rotational, every 15 minutes, learn about Solvang or some such thing, where they're a group of folks. So you're not doing 15 presentations in 10 minutes. You do one for 15 people every 20 minutes or something like that.
Oh.
But you could also convert that to YouTube or some other repetitive item, learn about Solvang in the next 20 minutes, or for what it's worth.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you very much, Lindsay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Jamie or Liana, you ready?
Yes, we're ready. Okay.
First slide up.
Are we going off the agenda packet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got the first slide up.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the overview. We're going to run through the quarterly data, May through July, top performing content, the Solvang community, our key takeaways, Instagram competitive market analysis, and our creative content creation that we did in the last quarter.
That's not it. Hold on. Try this again.
Wrong slides.
You don't get this page?
Try to plug it and plug it back in.
Shall we go ahead and get a beer while we wait or something?
There we go.
There we go.
I think we're ready. Sorry about that.
All good. Okay, if you want to skip to the next 2 pages, I'm at the quarterly check-in, the first slide after the overview. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's a bunch of numbers. I'm not going to bore you with going through all of them, but a few that I want to call out. Our Instagram gross growth is over 3,500, which is a little under 3 times what it was year over year for 2022, which is great news. Also, the threads, we were able to capitalize on that new platform starting and gaining over 3,400 followers directly from the Instagram audience. Another thing to highlight is that these are all completely organic engagements, and the Solvang account is incredibly engaging, as well as organic impressions. We want to go to the next slide. We have an overview of each of the platforms. We broke up Instagram into Instagram Reels, as well as Instagram Stories, because oftentimes the Instagram Stories are dark metrics and people can't see how many views there were or how many people replied to things. So we wanted to include that in the breakdown. We have the followers broken up between each platform. So we have a total of over 43,000 followers across the platforms that we're managing: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Threads. And we have also posted 205 times in the last 3 months across all of the different channels, whether it's on an Instagram story, a reel, a TikTok. There have been over 200 posts. We've reached almost 1 million people completely organically across all of the platforms. In terms of the average impressions per post, we're really getting great engagement still through Instagram and the Instagram Reels that we're sharing. And we've had over 23,000 profile views.
All right. And I'm going to take us through the top performing content and our big key takeaways from these. So starting with Instagram on our feed, we know that windmills attract the most engagement. And so taking this, we created a graphic for our Yule Fest announcement, which was very successful. People are extremely excited about this event. Events and things to do are really what people are wanting to see on Instagram. Next slide, please. These are our top 5 performers on Instagram. Again, it's showcasing the architecture. It's talking about solving fun facts. any event promotions, things to do, highlighting those in the comments. That's what people are wanting to see on this platform. Next, these are our Instagram Reels. So on videos, this audience really likes to see the unique things to Solvang, like Abelskiver and the sweet pastries, those Danish bites. And then they also like to see a day in the life in Solvang. So seeing what, if they're coming to visit, what would their day might look like. So we're showcasing that there. And the next platform is Facebook. This is definitely more of a community-based platform. They're most interested in seeing those events like 4th of July and Yule Fest and knowing what's coming up. Moving into TikTok. We are constantly trend searching. So I I listened to a trending audio that had a humorous aspect to it. So I overlaid that on the Danish Mill Bakery animatronics, which are a popular visual across social media. And that gave us the most likes on this platform, as well as another Abelskiver video. So again, those Danish pastries and utilizing those trending elements that we're finding. And this is Threads. As mentioned before, this was a completely new platform that launched in June, and we were thankfully an early adapter. Thanks to being an early adapter, we were able to see a trend that started at the start, which was using a pun off of Threads. And so we grabbed a video, a very eye-capturing photo, and utilized a Threads pun there. And that created that conversation, added a little bit of humor into that mix, which is what the audience wants to see. Solvang community. You guys have a very engaging community, which is awesome to see. They are very happy to visit Solvang. It brings back memories. It's that nostalgia. So we want to keep those conversations going. So you can see a couple of comments here. I'll let you read some of those yourself. And then I also want to call out that Anna's, one of her markets was Phoenix. And so it was really awesome to see that one of these comments was directly from Phoenix saying, we love coming every year for Yule Fest. So just seeing that transfer from other marketing elements transfer into social. So our key takeaways from this first quarter. Our wins are really just that our strategy is aligned with what we're seeing from the data in this report. In the audience, they're heavily engaged in the content with the events and the things to do. So an opportunity there is really highlighting those things to do and taking that sheet that Sue gave us for what people are asking at the visitor center. We're going to take that information, we're going to put it in our content on social media. And then we've reached almost 1 million visitors, completely organic, when most of our competition is using paid ads. And then community engagement, just keeping that conversation going, making people want to come back to Solvang and really just have that good feeling about the city in general. A couple of the challenges these last few months, starting a new Facebook page and starting that from scratch. So we started with zero followers, and now we're at just under 500 followers there. And that's thanks to our efforts of cross-channel marketing, and as well as getting into Facebook groups and consistently sharing some of our posts there so that the locals are involved as well and want to share it with their friends and family. And then, of course, thanks to TJA efforts, they are working on the website, so we'll be able to link people who are wanting other recommendations for things to do and where to stay. We're able to link them back to the website to further help their needs. And then just some more opportunities is really featuring those Abelskivers, helping that drive to the traffic on the website, and collab posts with influencers, which will help our reach on social media, which we have already done so in August. And we're excited to share our findings with those posts next time. All right, our market analysis, this just shows a competitive analysis from other local DMOs. In terms of new followers, it looks like everyone was trending down a little bit these last 30 days. Visit Ventura had the X Games, so that really helped to push their followers that month. In terms of engagement, while we did see a slight decrease, we are still above everyone else, right around 2%.
Okay, and then in July, we did have our creative content session, and we made sure that we were matching our content pillars and the social media strategy to the types of content that we captured. So here's a few samples of our still photographs, and then we have some samples of the short form video on the next slide, which I believe because it's PDF, it is not, it's not viewable. However, Jamie can kind of walk you through what it's like to create social first content as opposed to just a general video.
Yes. So taking from our takeaways this last few months, we are using these videos. We have Danish bakery spotlights. So again, getting those audiences that like the Danish pastries, those able skiers, they want to see more of what's unique to Solvang, which is Danish bakeries. And then the what to do in Solvang, answering any questions that we see come up. Is Solvang dog friendly? We're adding text and hooks onto those videos in order to capture that attention right away. And then the montages of Solvang highlights and those really pretty videos. And that's all I have.
Do we have any comments, questions from the council?
I have a comment and a question. First of all, guys, the content looks really, really good. The progress looks great. Most importantly, the collaboration and the cross-sharing between all these groups and entities looks to be, the real highlight here. And that you're all taking the promotion of Solvang with great care. So thank you for that. So just one quick question to keep the sentiment really high. Do we have a methodology? Are we using some kind of methodology to monitor and manage the comment sections in the social media environments? Do we?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we're in the accounts daily when we're doing we're replying to comments or at least liking them, as well as the direct messages.
Super, thank you.
Yeah, so we work with, since we've worked with Solvang for so long, some of them we can answer ourselves. Some of them we reach out to Anna for more specific updated information, and then she'll find answers for us as well. So anything that comes across, whether privately or publicly, we make sure is handled. We also are reposting people's Instagram stories if they're visiting and they tag Solvang USA.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move on, please, to the city manager's report? City manager. Going to sit in the city manager's chair now?
Yes, let me put on my city manager hat now. A few things to announce. Reminder, we are having a Skip Mesa meeting in here tomorrow night at 5:30.
5:30.
We have at least one representative from Brightview, and we've invited all of the residents of Skip Mesa to come in here and ask questions and share their concerns with the representatives from Brightview. Got an email yesterday from Waste Management with the Labor Day holiday next week. A reminder to everyone that the trash will be 1 day late. Trash pickup for residential will be 1 day late for the entire week. So if you get your trash picked up on Wednesday, normally it would come on Thursday, et cetera. The Monday trash will be picked up on Tuesday. Got an email from the chamber, also actually Friday, reminding everybody about the Labor Day travel, expecting traffic to be 4% greater this year than last. And international travel is expected to be up 44%, which I thought was interesting. And gasoline price will be about the same. Top international destination cities are Vancouver, Rome, London, Dublin, and Paris. Top destination for Southern Californians include the Central Coast. So hopefully we'll see an influx of visitors this coming holiday weekend. I will be in San Diego, by the way. Things that I've done, going to a Giants game. I'm sitting right next to the Giants dugout, so if you see me on TV, let me know. I'll try and behave myself. I won't be wearing a Viking hat either.
He's just going to see Vanilla Ice after the game.
Yeah. I went to a 3CE board meeting last week, Wednesday. I went to the ESA, GMA, or whatever the combination of letters is.
Way around.
GMA, ESA, maybe. On Thursday. On Friday, I went to Goleta to attend an event with the Secretary of the Housing and Urban Development, federal level. Fudge is her last name. Interesting, the city of Goleta has partnered in opening a shelter, basically, to help for homeless folks. It's an old Super 8 motel they've converted. I thought that was very interesting. And I put some information in your box, so if you had any questions about what that was about, that's where that was there. And today I got to tour our wastewater treatment plant, and if you've not done that, that's pretty fascinating as well. So bring a clothespin, but overall it wasn't bad that way either. So it was very fascinating and interesting, and I found it helpful. So anyway, that's what I've been up to.
Thank you very much. Do you have any comments or questions for the city manager?
What was the date again, or the time tomorrow for the next?
5:30 p.m. here in this room.
Yeah. Okay, then let's move on to council comments and requests. Do we have any council comments or requests?
I have none tonight.
No? I have two that I would like to do. Last Wednesday, I was at Music in the Park. It was a minor event with a couple of young men driving small electric motorcycles and trying to do wheelies in the park and everything. And there was a bunch of small kids around, and it bothered me, and everybody that was around me was complaining about it, so I went out and asked them to stop. The parents decided to talk to me about that. It was a lively conversation. But what came out of it, besides mutual understanding, was that the father had said that those were legal in the park. And I couldn't dispute it at the time, so I asked Lisa in planning, and she quoted me that the code says, operation of vehicles and bicycles. No person shall use, drive, or otherwise operate a vehicle in the city park, and no person shall ride a bicycle, as defined in the California Vehicle Code, in a city park upon surfaces other than those maintained and open for the use of public for purposes of vehicular travel except upon written permission of the city manager. So he was wrong. But I wanted everybody to understand that if that happens again, you can call on code enforcement if you have to. But the point was that they're not allowed to do that. Second, the city manager and I had talked about the fact that Buellton has a grant writer. And we talked about the idea of sharing a grant writer with Buellton. Have you had the opportunity to discuss that with Scott or with Dave?
I reached out to Scott. He has not returned my email.
Okay. I don't know what that cost is. I don't know what the availability of that particular person is, but I would like to pursue the idea of chasing down grants so we don't have to pay for everything ourselves. We have a lot of capital improvements we're going to hear about shortly, and I'd like to know if we can get some money to help pay for that. That's all I have. Okay, moving right along.
And for purposes of clarity, I have not given anyone permission to ride bicycles in the park.
I'm glad to hear that. So I was right. Oh, good. Consent items. Ms. Clerk, if you would introduce the consent items, please.
Consent is for routine administrative city matters and is approved with one motion. These items are discussed only on request of council members. Members of the public were afforded an opportunity to speak during the public communications portion of this agenda.
Do we have any questions or comments, or do you want to pull any items out of the consent agenda?
No.
No? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona absent, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Excuse me, yes, 4-1.
Thank you. Item 6A, Madam Clerk, if you'd introduce that item to us, please.
Discussion and possible action to introduce for first reading by title only ordinance number 230369, removing section 625, amending section 7310, and adding chapter 6, camping, to title 5, public health and safety of the Solvang Municipal Code, and making a determination of exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, this item is returning to you after direction from the July 10th council meeting regarding some amendments to the city's anti-camping ordinance. As we discussed at the July 10th meeting, there's been some recent changes in case law from various courts that have limited local governments' ability to regulate camping within the city limits. So we've gone ahead and we've made some changes to the city's ordinance to conform them to the current state of the case law. I won't go through each and every detail of what those changes are, but I'll go into some of the highlights. Basically, the case law said that the cities are not allowed to cite individuals for camping or otherwise sleeping in public if there's no other place for them to go. In other words, if there's no shelter space available. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to modify the ordinance to allow camping under certain circumstances, but very restrictive circumstances. So if there's a situation where someone is unable to find shelter space and they need to spend the night somewhere, there are provisions for that in this ordinance. They are very severely regulated, I will point that out, and they're designed to conform with the current state of the case law. What the courts do from here on out, I can't obviously predict, but this is the snapshot of where we are in the case law at this point. This ordinance is modeled on something that Grover Beach has put together. We stripped it down to address some of the issues that we thought were not consistent with Solvang's particular approach, and so we took out a lot of the things that were in the Grover Beach ordinance. But essentially, the draft ordinance is going to prohibit camping on city property, rights of way, and at city essential city public facilities such as public utilities, except where they don't have any other options. And then those obviously would be circumscribed. There are a couple places where the draft ordinance prohibits camping outright, though, and that would be anywhere within the TRC, on the city's property, or where the city has leasehold or easement rights for public utilities within 100 feet of Mission Drive and other specified locations within the city. It also set time limits on the amount of time a particular camp could be set up. If you've been to some larger cities, you'll see that some camps have been established for long periods of time. The maximum period of time under the proposed ordinance would be 24 hours. So if someone's there for more than 24 hours, the city would place a notice on the camp and say, this will be removed if it's not removed by a particular time. So we're trying to avoid having the camps actually get set up and established by allowing them only for limited periods of time. It would also regulate the use of vehicles. The city previously had an ordinance governing camping in vehicles. It would restrict the camping in vehicles on public property and rights-of-way between 9 a.m. and 6 a.m. near schools and anywhere else in the TRC. And so that's basically the kind of high level. We're trying to, again, avoid running afoul of the current state of case law in drafting this ordinance. If we get subsequent cases where the courts say cities are further restricted, we'll obviously have to come and revisit this ordinance. But this is the current state of the law and state of the art as far as the ordinance goes. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. The recommendation, though, is to go ahead and introduce by first reading, by title only, first reading of the ordinance.
Thank you. Questions or staff report?
Just one question. Are you familiar with anything that's going on down in the river?
A little bit. I've had some communications with staff and other council members about some of the camping opportunities that have arisen in there. I say opportunities in the broader sense. It's a large area, and it's somewhat difficult because some of it's within the city limits, some of it's not, some of it's just plain and simple difficult to get to. But the concerns were the city's water wells, the utility facilities within there. Those are addressed in the ordinance.
Okay. Do you see the commute of the folks in the river coming up Alisal in the mornings?
Yeah, and the city manager and I spoke about some potential options to try to address, if people are truly without housing, and if they're looking for housing, there may be some avenues that we can do. The difficulty sometimes that we run into is some of the people are not interested in housing. They're not interested in shelter. They're interested in
see that in a lot of
remaining
cities
out there. And
that happened here.
that is a multifaceted issue that we talked about on July 10th at the last meeting where this was discussed. And so we have to kind of take it as it comes. But the current ordinance is to protect the city's facilities to the extent that we can under the existing case law.
Understood. That's what concerns me. Thank you.
On that point, can I ask a question? Sorry, Dave, but it's on the same topic. So I do have a question or maybe an ask for clarity on how we're protecting the city's utilities in particular. There is a section where we actually call out operated, that property that is essentially city-owned or operated public utilities. It's on page 85. We don't really define a boundary like in this particular statement, like we do in other places for Mission Drive, 100 feet, or school, 200 feet. Can we add that for specificity? And what I'm really concerned with, it comes to public utilities that are providing water, essential services like power and phone access. We may need to put maintenance trucks or, especially in the case of emergency, in and around those utilities. So if we had a perimeter, I think that would be important.
So there's a couple things at play in your question that I would have to be concerned about. First and foremost, the ordinance is designed to put people on clear notice of what is and what is not prohibited. So we have been, I don't want to say vague, but we have allowed flexibility for city facilities, and rather than specifying, like we did with Mission Drive, every single facility, that would require an ordinance change every time we either acquired one or got rid of one. What some cities have done in this situation is they have created a map. They place it on their website as to where camping is permitted, what the time frames are, and so on, to allow people who may be experiencing homelessness for a short period of time to understand where they can and cannot do this. That's something that we could do administratively without putting it into the ordinance. As far as the perimeter around the public utilities, we may not have control over that particular land. So we can control the land that we have. So if, for example, a private property owner says, I'm fine with them camping on my property, and it happens to be close to a city facility, we're somewhat circumscribed in how we can control that. We can control our own property and property over which we've got access rights, but we have to be a little bit more cognizant of the private property rights of people.
Understood. Usually we have easements. In fact, that's precisely why I'm concerned, because some of our utilities are not in the city boundary. So do we really have ordinance jurisdiction?
We have ordinance jurisdiction over properties under which we've got control, so we can control them not as necessarily in a governmental control, but as a proprietary role. In other words, we are a tenant. We would address it as any other tenant would in that situation. So it may not be something that we cover under the municipal code, but we may be able to report it to the county, for example. If our property is within the county would have to enforce their ordinances on it, but we could contact the county sheriff if it's a trespassing issue on something outside our jurisdiction, where we would treat it as any other private property owner would.
And tents don't work towards arena numbers, do they?
They do not.
I had a question. With regards to, inasmuch as this is drafted after the Grover Beach ordinance, have they had any challenges to theirs, and what has their success been with that?
Challenges in terms of legal challenges or challenges in enforcement? Or both.
Both.
I haven't spoken with their city attorney about this. We tend to hear more through the grapevine on that kind of thing. I'll see it on the court dockets occasionally, but I haven't had any conversations directly with their city attorney about their experience at this point. I will say this, the ordinance is fairly new. They're probably still working out some of the kinks on it. I think it was only adopted less than a year ago at this point. I think it was November or December of last year. So it takes time to educate people about what is accepted, what's prohibited, and it's building a better mousetrap. It changes as you learn lessons from the enforcement. So you may say, oh, we had a great idea in drafting the ordinance that doesn't work out, and you have to modify it.
Those are the lessons I'm trying to get today.
Yeah. So we may not know from our experience in adopting this ordinance what will absolutely work, what doesn't work until sometime down the road. But this is, you've heard me refer to it as a tool in the toolbox or an arrow in the quiver. This is a tool that we will have to try to address the concerns that the council has that were not addressed by the prior ordinance.
Any other comments? Do we have any public comments on this issue? I have nothing for 6A, no. Anybody on Zoom? It doesn't appear that way. Okay, so we'll bring it back to the council then. This is, as was stated, this is a review,
First reading.
First reading.
first read. Okay? And our decisions at this point are to accept it as a first read?
You'd make a motion to introduce by title only, first reading by title only, ordinance number 230369.
Do I have a motion to do that, please?
I'll make a motion to accept and introduce on first reading ordinance number 230369 as written.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona, absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes,
Motion passes 4-0.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going on to item 6B, if you would introduce that to us, please, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible action to approve the Third Amendment to the agreement with Carollo Engineers, Inc. for an expanded scope of services for completion of a time schedule compliance plan for Regional Water Quality Control Board to support USDA grant application for the wastewater treatment plant water quality project for the additional amount not to exceed $106,270 for a total contract amount not to exceed $308,760 for the existing term to April 1, 2024, and authorize the mayor to execute on behalf of the city.
Staff report.
Thank you. So this is normally something our utilities director would bring to the council, but since we don't have one, I will do my best to explain what's going on. As written in the staff report, in March of '22, council approved Carollo to be contracted to help us get grants, or a grant for the wastewater treatment plant expansion. In November of '22, you all approved amendment number 1 to compile, complete, and submit a preliminary engineering report to go along with the USDA grant. A few months later, in May, the approved amendment 2 in order to determine whether or not the site was within the 500-year floodplain of the San Ynez River. It is not. Amendment 3, now as we're moving through the process, USDA has required us to do a time schedule compliance plan, TSCP, which will say we're going to do these things on this calendar and we'll do our best to comply with it. So Carollo's already begun working on this in order to help facilitate the grant application. So part of this money has already been spent, and we've not paid for it yet, but they've been working on it to help keep things moving along. If you recall, we originally had a time frame about this time in order to submit our grant because we believed at that time that USDA, we might not qualify when the new census numbers were formally approved, and that is no longer, we found out since that that's not going to be an issue. So we're not under that time constraint. So So nonetheless, we're at this situation where Corello has begun work on doing this. We've had several Zoom or Teams calls with USDA folks and other regulators. But we're asking council to approve the additional funding of $106,000 and change for a total amount for this particular contract to not exceed $308,760. And I will do my best to answer any questions.
Questions from council?
You know, I have a lot of questions.
This is tough. This is really tough.
So there's, and please, before I start asking my questions, being awarded this grant is so crucial to our wastewater treatment plant budget and our ability to update and upgrade. It's a massive project for us, and we've already kind of predicted what our cost model would be in an assumptive way, that we were getting this ability to cut our budget in half, right? Or roughly in half, 40%. So no mistake, we need to assess where we really think we are. So if we're about to spend more money to go after this grant, I'd really like to know what it is it's costing us to get the application submitted in total. Do we anticipate any further expenses? I know we couldn't anticipate this new effluent requirement, but what do we, and let's hold that in comparison or evaluation to what do we think is the likelihood that we will be awarded this grant?
My understanding, after 4 months today on the job, is that it's really a formality, the grant. I mean, if we meet and check all the boxes, it's not a competitive grant. This is a grant USDA gives us. We qualify under all the terms associated with the funding. So not only that, but we would qualify for basically below market interest on an approximately 40-year loan. So we'd get roughly, I believe it's 25%. Wendy's still here? Yes. 25% grant is what we were looking at.
For the wastewater treatment plant?
For the USDA, yeah.
40. I thought it was 40.
Grant? Yes. Okay. So 40% grant of the 17 million plus the interest, round figures $20 million loan, project. So we would get $8 million and then fund the other 12 for a low interest rate loan.
Do we have a running total of what we're spending so far?
I don't know that we have an actual running total. The amount we've paid Corello, if you all approve this item, is $308,000 and change. I'm not aware that we spent any other monies on this for the grant application.
We would have to include, because it's been going on for multiple years, to get an exact cost, we'd have to include all the prior years as well.
Yeah, but wasn't that mostly engineering?
Yes.
Not grant application? So I think the question was how much of it was grant application? And if that I don't think that's been going on the full time.
No, that's been going on less than a year, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been going on less than a year, but if you wanted a total cost for the whole upgrade, because we finished the first phase, putting in the clarifiers. So that would be part of the cost of the upgrade as well.
My simple question is, how assured are we when we spend this money that we're getting a grant and that we're not denied in having wasted all these expenditures?
If we can comply with the discharge, we should be able to get the grant of 40% of the total cost of the project.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because the discharge is a new and more elevated requirement. That's what this TSCP is meant to timeline how we could meet those requirements. But isn't this more than, maybe we need a technical explanation because the scope of work has no definition of what a TSCP is, what the report looks like, and what technical requirements we need engineering help for. It has 430 hours of work, but Randy, you just described it as basically constructing a timeline for compliance. But I thought to meet the effluent requirement, we need new technology. Is that correct? Or we need, stop me if I'm wrong, but we need somewhere to take the wastewater treatment water. If we can't release it into the river, we need somebody to take it off our hands.
The overall issue is very complex, and I'm not sure I totally understand it completely either. One of the issues that USDA brought up was, we're not going to give you this money if you can't meet the waste discharge requirements. The state had given us, it said we were in one basin when we're actually in a different basin, and that's where they set the limits. So we've been having phone, Zoom calls, conversations about that. We had a Zoom call last week. The idea is we can comply. They have not set the new waste discharge requirements yet, the new permit. They had thought initially we were going to be in one basin. Now they've determined we're actually in another one. Because of our engineers and the people that are working with us, got them to look again at the map. So the USDA has said, like I've already mentioned, they would not like to give us the money if we're not going to meet the WDRs, but they have not been established actually in concrete, etched in stone yet.
Is the
But we
Chumash
can't get
Casinos
there without this part of it.
Is
being done.
Chumash Casino treatment plant require, did they have also an increase in these effluent requirements applied to them? Are we the only ones?
The Chumash?
Yeah.
No.
They have a treatment plant as well. Did they have an
They have-
increase in their?
would have their own, they're governed totally separately from us, and I don't know what their discharge requirements are.
Federal government.
They're federal. They're not
That's not
state.
Also released into the same river that we're talking about, right?
Rules.
Yeah, separate set of rules.
Okay, wow.
And they actually do 100%, they do reclaim.
They do, okay.
And add to the complexity, they're considered a sovereign nation, so it's very different than the city.
Yes.
He's beyond federal.
It is. Any other comments or questions, rather questions for the,
This is amendment number 3. I don't want number 4 and 5 to come up, okay? And I guess I'm saying, where's the end game here? Because from what you just told me, Randy, is that they keep moving the goalpost.
And we're stuck.
And
The regulators are
clock.
not the engineer, not our consultant. It's the regulators that have said, originally it was, we hired them to help us with the grant. And then, you need to do this. The USDA said you need to do this. Okay, we did that. And you need to do that. So we've done that. And now there's this third thing, which is another, and it's outside the scope of what they've, originally budgeted.
Yeah.
And we don't know. I mean, ultimately, they might come up with something else. I'm hoping not. I mean, I think we're down to the 11th hour, and they understand we're, this close to the goal line. Like you said, they've moved it a couple of times.
Randy, do we have an assessment yet that we can meet this effluent limits requirement? Do we know what it's going to take?
well, that's the problem. We don't know what the requirements are.
Well,
Yeah, I think we do.
this question again would be probably better answered by Nathan, but I'll do my best. So they originally thought we were in one basin, or they were trying to put us in one basin, and we've successfully argued that we don't belong in that basin. We're in a unregulated, well, it's not unregulated, but it has different limits. So what they're concerned about, the 4 things they're primarily concerned about are TDS, which are total dissolved solids, sodium, chloride, and nitrates. And of those four, three of them depend on the quality of, or at least are impacted by the quality of the water that we're using to start. So, for instance, if we use state water, then TDS is a certain level, sodium's a level, and chlorides are a level. And nitrogen is really the only thing we add because of the biologic function of human consumption and ends up in this plant. So the idea is that that's certainly something within our control. If we use one basin, then the TDS is this specific rate, and the sodium is another rate, and chlorides are another rate. But if we use this other basin, then they're different. So we have to decide which is more compatible with what we know we can do.
But we don't get to make that decision.
Well, we can strongly recommend it. Okay. And it sounded like, based on our call the other day, they were willing to work with us. So it's highly likely that we're going to come to an agreement. Now, the only way to remove TDS or sodium from water or from wastewater is a very expensive treatment called reverse osmosis. Some people have it for drinking water into their sink. And a high volume, high capacity thing like a wastewater treatment plant rated at 1.5 million gallons a day, it's very expensive. And as Mayor Pro Tem Morona hinted at a few minutes ago, what do you do with the waste product from that? And the regulators have made it clear, the State Water Board has made it clear, they're not trying to force us into reverse osmosis. They understand it's very expensive. They understand we've only got 2,500 connections, basically customers. Even though we got 6,000 odd residents in town, obviously there's only so many connections. So when you take a very large number divided by a very small number, you're still left with a very large number to deal with. So they understand the limitations of our situation. So they're not going to make us do reverse osmosis. And that's not what they said, but I would add yet. Again, the state keeps changing the rules. And I was just talking, I told you I toured the wastewater treatment plant this morning. And when I was talking with Nathan, back 50 years ago, we barely did anything. And it was okay then. And obviously, environmental rules change, and we understand the impact it has on the fish and whatever else. So we have to update and change what the regulations. We don't know what the future will bring. And as these things go on, it's likely. And it won't be just us. It'll be throughout the state and several other impacted watersheds like Santa Ynez River is. I'm hopeful that we can get there. The state, again, has suggested that if we, in good faith, make these efforts, they will not fine us. They may say we're out of compliance with TDS, for instance, if that's the one we choose has a higher sodium but lower TDS, then we can, they'll say, well, you need to keep working on it. So we've got a plan. I'm actually meeting with Nathan, Mike, and Matt Vanderlinden on Thursday to talk about how we might blend the water that we give to the community that will have a different impact. Because like I said, based on the source water, these things change. So we can start experimenting with that and come up with a solution that will come a lot closer to meeting the criteria. And if we have a plan, and that's part of what this TSCP, this time schedules compliance plan is all about, is identifying what these options are and how long it will take us to have an answer.
I remember when Matt had suggested a blending of the two wells because one
Right.
well was way under and one well was way over, and they blended them together and got it within the state regulations, and it went out to the residents, and it was fine. That idea makes a lot of sense to me. But these guys know much more than I. You got three great, knowledgeable experts to talk to about that. I'm sorry, any other questions for the staff? Okay, in that case, Do we have any public? We have one public comment request in here, Miss Elamine.
Well, I really think that the marketing people should be after the waste because we have to listen to their bull stuff, so they should have to listen to ours, our waste management. This program here, we've been out of compliance for years. The laws change, and they will continue to change because they're trying to keep us from drinking our wastewater. You guys make us sit here an hour to hear about marketing here, and marketing brings in more toilet flushers. And our facility is out of compliance. You spend more time with marketing issues than you do with this wastewater. You don't know enough about something that you should know more about. And I don't get that. I think you should flip it and you should learn more about wastewater because wastewater is a big deal. We are out of compliance. We're paying people for nothing. And you can understand it. They're talking in general terms and babbling and not giving you the full bull. But you can understand that we're just giving these people money to just string us along. And enough is enough. I mean, if you spend $100,000 and you say, I've already spent $100, I'll spend another $100, and maybe they'll do this. The state's going to keep changing their requirements. You can count on that. They're going to keep changing it. And if you're going to keep spending $100,000 in the year, 2025, we'll be at $800,000 or $1 million to these people, and we'll still be out of compliance. You guys were going with the percolating the wastewater and selling it to Alisal. Alisal refused. You don't have anybody who wants this wastewater after you have it. So you guys really need to get some understanding on this wastewater plant. We've been out of compliance too long. It's going to cost, every time you put it off another year, it costs more money. And you guys need to get more into wastewater than you are into these marketing people who are bringing these butts in here flushing these toilets that we don't have room for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? Do we have anybody on Zoom? On this item? All right, we'll bring it back to the council then. We need final comments or questions, or we need a motion to approve the
Mr. Mayor.
amendment. Yes, sir?
Just to clarify, we are not out of compliance.
I know we're not.
So I just want to make the people online to understand that they have a proposed set of regulations, and we're doing our best to comply and find out how we can comply with that. But we're not out of compliance. And
We're not out of compliance, we're out of date, and we need better capacity. That's what our issue is, so. But Randy, I mean, I know, I'm not sure my peers are going to agree, but I don't have enough information. I would like to know more exactly what we're getting out of this TSCP report. And $100,000 is a lot of money. And I'm not going to make a motion, and you can probably tell how I'm going to vote, but I think we can revisit this because it certainly sounds like a necessary thing. I just don't know what we're getting for $100,000.
Would it be prudent to have Carlo?
Corello.
Have him come in and.
At our next meeting? And
I can certainly have him available at the next
postpone
meeting.
this till the next meeting?
If that's the will of the council, certainly I can
I would like to have that.
have Jeff be able to do this. Like I said, they've already done some of this work.
Yeah, I would protect them for that, but I would not want to go into third and fourth amendments or adjustments.
Yeah, and how do we get
Without having-
assurances of that,
Yeah.
even though, whether you can or can't, but
I agree that I don't wish to spend more time with it, but I know they're working on it as we speak, and I would I would pay them for their time, but I don't think that we have enough to go into the full contract without knowing
have
what this is, unless you.
But the full contract has already been out. All this is an amendment to the contract for additional.
But Mark, there's no scope of work in this package. There's no definition of what that work
But
is.
he's got a whole scope of work for the
It's-
contract.
it's not
you want.
here.
He didn't
You're
present it
asking us
you
to
or
say
us.
yes.
That's true. All right. Last comments or questions, or a motion one way or the other? Yes, sir.
I like Dave's idea
Okay.
about bringing Corolla in here.
You want to make
You
a
want to
motion?
make a
for that?
motion? It's Dave's motion. Give it to
Well,
Dave.
that's not the agenda item, though.
Well, it's to approve this.
Yeah,
Well, what I'd suggest
I
then.
can make a motion to table this till the next meeting
With bringing,
with Mr., with the engineers here to answer our questions.
We can do that.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
No.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, moving on to item 6C. Would you introduce that, please, Madam Clerk?
Discussion and possible action to adopt Resolution 23-1227, approving the capital improvement program.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is our staff's presentation for the proposed fiscal year 2023, 2024 capital improvement program, or the modifications to it. So this is an overview. The 2023, the CIP was approved on June 26. It was my birthday, by the way. I wasn't here, but it was approved.
Keep birthday.
Thank you. My warranty expired that day I turned 50, so that's, I keep telling people. But included in the CIP was only items that were in the 10-year CIP. So anything that was on the CIP from the previous year was just fell off the map. So that's why we're back here. We have projects that are ongoing and working on, and there's also other stuff that was not on the 10-year CIP that we want to kind of do, because we do a 10-year CIP to kind of future planning, map things out, but we got to be agile and, kind of address things as we go. So that's why we're here, to make some adjustments. And that's, an overview. So we have one new project, which was the 410 Second Street, the old Christian Science Reading Room, which we're looking to convert into our transit office. So that, we need to make some ADA improvements to get it ready to be able to use as an office. And then most of the additions that we're looking to do are carryover projects. The main ones that kind of have the biggest hit were, there's two generator projects, one at the Vets Hall and one for the City Hall complex here. And I'll get into those in just a minute as far as a few explanations. Another item is the municipal facilities master plan, which is something that we've awarded a contract to somebody. We are looking to get started on it, and now that we have a new facility, we're adding to that master plan. But then also with some current organizational changes, we're going to see if we can loop that in as well. And then the improvements to HCA Park, which you see a picture here. This is, I think, what most of the folks are certainly here to talk about. So that was technically a carryover item. We have grant funds. We have about $100,000 left of our Prop 68 funds. So that's going to be carried over into the pickleball project. But also we're looking to add on to the general fund contribution to the Prop 68. It was, our match was about $40,000. We're looking to increase that a bit to be able to deliver the pickleball courts, the pickleball project as we move forward with what we found. And again, I can get into that in just a little bit. But our last year's capital improvement program, notable projects that we completed were the Second Street Drainage and Lot 5 Improvement Project. We also did a slurry seal project for streets and city parks. We did ACA Park and the parking lot for Sunny Fields. We did, as part of the Second Street, we did some improvements to repair the annex, which is across the street here. There were some drainage issues. We were getting quite a bit of water in the building, but we were able to create a connection to the new storm drain that we installed, and we took care of that. Also, the Friesmore Canyon water line was done by the Water Department, and that was, gosh, I don't know all the details, but about a mile of water line put down straight down Friesmore Canyon. The Prop 68 project that was completed was the picnic tables, the new purchase of the picnic tables in HCA Park. So I don't know if you've seen those, but they look really good. They were not on our CIP, but we did have to address, kind of took most of my time, most of the winter and springtime was a bunch of emergency projects, particularly the very large one that we had to do out on Alice Howe. We are also nearing completion of our active transportation plan. We got a meeting later this week with the consultant to go over our comments, staff's comments to that, and we'll be hopefully presenting that to council in a couple, maybe in about a month or so. And then we did purchase a couple large pieces of equipment. We a lift truck, and the mini excavation was purchased for the utilities department. Now, notable projects from the fiscal year 2022-2023 that we're not proposing to carry over, but certainly within your power to say, hey, I want to carry those over. But the Vets Hall ADA restroom upgrades was funded for about $600,000 out of general fund. The reason why we chose not to move forward with that is because it's eminent that the senior center is going to be moving in and utilize the Vets Hall. And it's been some fits and starts, and we weren't really sure exactly when they were going to come in. They were supposed to be in by now, but they're not. But I know that they are still planning to move in. But I certainly didn't want to have them move in and start utilizing it and then say, hey, well, by the way, you now no longer have a restroom to use because we're going to do a big project. So that's why we put that one off. So the recommendation is to keep it on the 10-year CIP, move it out to, say, 2025 or 2026, which gives them adequate time to be able to do their project, and then they can get out, and then we can move in and do our ADA restroom upgrade project. The HCA playground replacement project was about $350,000 of general fund monies. That was the main need for that was that we had a couple pieces that were broken on that, and we couldn't find replacements. And so we were basically told that we were going to need to get a whole new, this is about a 10 to 15-year-old playground structure, but we were able to locate replacement parts. So now it is fully functional, and it's been inspected, and it is in good shape. We kind of kicked that can down the road. We can certainly revisit that if council wants us to relook at that. We were going to look at the option of doing a tot lot. Not sure if we're going to be able to do all those improvements with the $350,000 because the replacement of the unit itself was probably going to be close to $200,000. So, a tot lot was, in addition to that and some site work. And then the restroom fixture upgrades, that's still a project that's ongoing. We finally got some bids from a couple of suppliers, but what we're looking to do is include that into our standard budget for our facilities. So, and what that project is to do touch-free faucets and toilets for all the city facilities. And so that's where we are looking to move forward on that. The Mission Drive ped and signal improvements was, for last year was a study, and for this year was, hey, we'll be done by the study by then and we can move forward with the project. That was very optimistic. But the study, we became aware of a grant for a Caltrans Sustainable Communities Planning grant. And so we took a look at that and said, that's ideal for us. We want to do that, and not only are we going to be able to study Mission Drive and how the idea behind this project is to try to work the pedestrians and the vehicles so that we can keep traffic flowing at a slow, we're not going to get it flowing at 50 miles an hour. We don't want it to flow at 50 miles an hour, but we want it to continue to flow and not be interrupted intermittently by pedestrians as they just decide, hey, I got a crosswalk, I'm just going to start crossing. So we're going to look at that options of also looking at the melee crosswalk is what it's called, the scramble crosswalk. Yeah, I've heard it called a couple different things. Just like the middle lane is a suicide lane. Oh, no, I don't want to really call it that. But, so we're going to look at options for that. And this planning grant was going to be able to do a massive, in our provide a lot of different opportunities for us for look at, citywide, our pedestrian routing plan in downtown, some signage plans, wayfinding, that sort of stuff. I mean, we're going to lump everything into this, including potentially the parking structure study, which is another one that we didn't move forward with. Problem was, we needed to have a certified housing element in order to apply for that grant. So we're looking at applying for that grant next year when we do have a certified housing element, and that is the next cycle of that grant. So that project, I mean, it's we will look to maybe bring some. We'll be coming to council before we apply for that grant, and we might be looking to make ourselves more competitive. It is a competitive grant. Make ourselves more competitive, maybe bring some money to the table to pay for that grant. But we were looking at, or pay for the study, but we were looking at that study being about $400,000 and the grant covering a substantial portion of that. So maybe we bring this back at that time for the original cost, which was about $50,000 for that study, in order to provide a 10%, potential 10% or slightly more match. But I just wanted to kind of give you a read on that and why we have not moved forward with that project, and why some of the other items, which was about $525,000 for this year, have dropped off this CIP. So I just wanted to kind of explain where we're going and where we're coming from. So I organized the CIP into types of projects. So the transportation road-related projects. So as you see here, this is the current CIP. So our pavement overlay repairs and crack seal program, which is our larger maintenance project for this year, which we're looking to do kind of spring to summer of next year. It was previously funded for about $700. We think we can deliver about $650, and that's funded through, as I've organized this, so it's general fund, gas tax, and Measure A. So we got three funding sources coming together. So originally it was funded for $350,000 for general fund. I dropped that to, as I recall, $150,000, mainly because I'm trying to save general fund as much as I can, and some of the other items I'm kind of required to hit general fund on. So we can use gas tax and Measure A on this for this project. Miscellaneous road repairs. This is going to be a large part of our design and our preparation for our large projects, and disseminating what our next slurry seal project will be as well. And that's paid for all out of Measure A. Alice L. Bridge Repair Project for $80,000. I'm not proposing to change that, and that is something that came out of a 2012 study. We need to dive into that and start looking into that, but as I understand it, it's a proposal for some pier, some repairs to the piers for the Alice L. Bridge. So it's nothing that is absolutely imminent and we got to do it or the bridge is going to fall down, but it's more of a preventative maintenance type project. And this was for the this $80,000 was for the design and the study of that to move forward with it. And I think next year in the 10-year, which might get kicked down the road by a year, is the funding the actual project, which I can't recall exactly how much that is, but it's in the $500,000 range is what I recall. And then the Mission Drive Ped and Signal project, that one is, so we're going to not do this project this year. It was funded for $525, so we're proposing to have it at zero for this year, so we can kind of gather our troops and work towards when we do have a certified housing element, so we can apply for that grant. So alternative transportation projects. So we have the project across the street to develop that into a parking lot and do some improvements there. That is so current. It was not funded because it dropped off.
Take the water bottle and move it over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much.
So that is currently not funded in the CIP, but it is a project that we are actively in design. I had a meeting just this afternoon with the design team to go over some placement of cameras and lights. So, because we're gonna fence it, it's gonna be for city vehicles, and we want to make sure that it's secure and safe. So again, that's a combination of general fund. We do have a grant from the Air Pollution Control District of $150,000, and then also transit's going to kick in because that is going to be the transit parking lot. So we're going to kick in some transit funds for that as well. Also, the transit vehicle replacement was those are transit monies, and also some grant funds for $365. So again, this is just a rollover from the last year. Long story to tell on our, the purchase of one of the vehicles was purchased before I started, which is over 2 years ago. Still haven't received it. It was on order. They built it, it was ready to go, and then it was on a flatbed on the way to the dealership, and they got in an accident, and they got destroyed. And, and then, so we had to get back in line for that. So we're working on finding another vendor at this point, is what we're talking now. Our sidewalk infill and repair project, so currently it's funded for $200,000, and that's a project that we fund in our 10-year, every year for $200,000. Half general fund, half Measure A. And what that's to do is, infill some sidewalks where they don't exist, and then also do some repair. So what the very first project that we wanted to do with this was in the Alice L. Glen neighborhood. I identified that as the needing the most repair for, so I talked to our concrete grinding company and said, where's our, let me see the report, where's the worst case? So they got in the report, and that had the most locations where grinding's no longer going to do it, because you got a 4-inch sidewalk, you grind it down, next thing you know, you grind it down 3 inches, and you can't grind anymore. Now you're just grinding tree roots. And so we decided we're going to do that. So we designed it, scoped it, and it was in the $350,000 range, which was basically double what our budget was last year. So we made the decision that we're going to do it, but what we want to do is we're going to wait until the next fiscal year. So we're going to combine two fiscal years worth of projects, and we're going to deliver this project. So the design's ready to go. If this gets approved, we can probably hit the street in the next month and a half or so. Just refine the specs and put that out to bid. Also included with that will be the access ramp improvements, which is we're looking to keep that steady. We had $65,000, which is that's also Measure A. The Freesburg Canyon pedestrian facility, again, last year was at about $50,000, and that was the design project to be able to actually build something. And then we put the funding in here, again, very hopeful that we would be able to do something for $200,000. It's probably not going to be quite that. It's probably going to be a little bit more. But what we're looking to do is create some sort of pedestrian facility to connect Chalk Hill with Viborg. We got Freesburg Canyon. It's a very rural road. We get people walking down there all the time. There's a lot of blind spots, a lot of overgrowth, and it's it doesn't give me a warm, fuzzy feeling driving that road and seeing people walking their dogs down that road. So what we're looking to do is do what's called a road diet. So narrow the lanes, do some really solid striping, narrow the lanes a little bit, so get people to slow down a little bit, and then create on the hillside side, on the uphill side, create a probably a paved multi-purpose trail type. If we can go, we're not sure how wide we can go yet. We need to get a topo and design the thing, but we're looking at probably 6 to 8 feet, protected by a raised curb, and give some people. It's not going to be a concrete sidewalk, but it'll be something for people to be able to get out of traffic and then walk. That's for the school kids and other folks that want to walk along that path and go from the neighborhood down into the downtown. So I realize I'm going a little long here, so I'll try to hustle on the next ones. Facility projects. So our Veterans Hall generator, it was funded for $350. Now for the current year, it was a zero. I'm proposing to roll that over at $350. What we have done is we commissioned a study through through a county program, and we have a report that tells us what we can do at the Veterans Hall. And I looked at a lot of different things, energy usage and what our options are. And we actually have a potential for a solar option, which would, small canopy in the parking area, battery backup. And we would be able to provide, what estimated for $150,000, we would be able to provide 100% of the energy needs for that building at this point. And what that would also do is our energy costs would go down quite a bit because now we're generating electricity. Now, I did have them look at if we replace the heater and installed air conditioning in that facility, which is a completely different out of the box type thing, and what the solar needs for that would be, and that's about $1 million solar project. So maybe someday, but that's not what we're looking at right now. But we have potential to do that, so we're ready to go into design on this one. But that's where we're at. So I kept it at 350 mainly because the couple one down, the City Hall emergency generator replacement is also on the list, also funded at the same amount. And we did recently do some repairs to the City Hall generator, necessary repairs. So it's working and functional and in pretty good shape. But we're looking at doing the same thing, maybe looking at a solar option and see what we can figure out to do there. That's going to be a slightly different, it's a slightly different animal, because we have the fire department upstairs, we got this building, we got the water shop, and we have a pump as well that we would need to power. So we're looking at that's definitely a different equation.
Have you looked at APCD for their funding for electronic?
We have not.
Okay.
At this point, I know that their most recent grant, it was, I think, due today. So I think we might be able to get into the next cycle if we're able to. We don't have the study yet to see what was needed. What I did do for the City Hall is I had an engineer give me do a report to figure out what it would take to provide a generator at the Vets Hall. And the generator was $250 or so, but it was replacement in kind, same maintenance, same diesel requirements and everything else. And then also it was the lead time on it were 60 to 75 months, or 60 to 75 weeks for the lead time for those. So had I ordered it then, we would still be waiting until the end of next year in order to get that. So that's just kind of the nature of it at this point. So the other facilities projects, we got the City Hall exterior painting, that was on the list. We're keeping that. The annex building drainage, which we completed, but that also plays into the exterior painting, which was the $45,000. We're proposing to keep that as well. The facilities master plan, it was at $75,000, but we're proposing to up it. Our contract is at $82,000, I believe, so we would need to bring that up. And then, but what we're looking to do is I'm going to be working with the engineer to try to add the new facility and revise the scope a little bit to kind of try to keep it around the same target range, around 82 to 85,000. And then the ADA improvements to the transit office, which is paid out of transit funds, but I'm estimating about $75,000 to get that facility ready to move in. And again, that's transit capital funds that we need to spend on capital stuff. So our parks projects. So here's where the pickleball courts come in. So currently funded at $0, but we do have $99,000 left in the grant that we can spend. So we certainly want to add that if we want to spend that grant money. So we got to add that to our CIP. And then for the pickleball courts, we did a design because what was on the table was fencing, site repairs, some drainage because project was built in-house. But what we found is over the last year or so, the surface of those courts are failing. They're starting to spall off. And the problem is that the courts were built out of concrete, and they were built as one would build a patio. So if someone was, if you were going to build a concrete patio, they did it absolutely right. They spot on, they did a great job. But this is a play court, which needs, it needs no joints. Otherwise, you know, that's where you get the cracking and the spalling. So where it's spalling off is where the expansion joints are, and there's some soft stuff. So you get some difference of materials there. So a resurface is probably $15,000 to $20,000, and we would have, if we left the concrete the way it was, we'd be doing that every year and a half or so. And it would just be a constant effort trying to do that. So I did identify a consultant that does this sort of work, and what they recommended, they told me it'd be about $175,000 to do about a 7-inch lift of post-tension concrete on top of the pickleball courts, or just remove them and remove the concrete where it is, demo it, and then put the courts back. So what we're looking to do, what we're proposing, is to take a look at the courts that we have now. Maybe if we're gonna do a full demo, maybe look at adding one. So maybe we get 3 courts out of the deal for the site, because right now the way they're oriented, kind of odd. So there's potentially room for 3. And so this additional funding, the additional funding that we're asking for, which would be about 175 of general fund monies, plus the 100,000 that we have for the grant, would fully expend our Prop 68 monies, but it would allow for potentially delivering at least 2, potentially 3 pickleball courts. And that's all the site, you know, basically all the site improvements that we had discussed previously, and the fencing and everything else. And then resurface, you know, basically all new facilities, and access, you know, providing some nice access up to it too, because right now it's just a railroad type a stairway that goes in there. And then the Solvang Park gazebo repairs, I got a couple quotes. I got a roofer lined up. I just need to get him under contract, but that's another project that I'm looking to kind of do and try to see if I can fit that in between special events. Is basically, I got a new spire, so it looks really good. It's taking up space in my office, but
Made him aspire.
yeah. But we are looking to do that as well, and that's going to include not only re-roof, but we've already purchased some electrical upgrades. We've purchased the lighting and the equipment to go in there, so it's just a matter of pulling the trigger on that once we get it going. The stormwater maintenance improvement projects. So again, we had $70,000 in last year. We're looking to carry that over, and that is what that is that's a more of a planning project to meet a regulatory requirement that we're required to be absolutely 100% compliance by 2030, and that is that we're not supposed to allow anything, a cigarette butt or smaller, or any cigarette butt or larger has to be captured and not flow downstream out of the city. So that's an unfunded mandate that has been a requirement for every city, and there's a couple different ways to go about it. What we're looking to do is capitalize on all the efforts that we make in our downtown with the street sweeping and the trash collection and everything else, to be able to utilize that as we just need to write it up and format it the right way and submit that to the water board to get credit for doing what we're already doing. And rather than put in very expensive trash capture devices and have to maintain those and have to go clean those out all the time and everything else. So we feel that that's a good strategy for us, particularly given the efforts that we're already making. So that's what we're going to move forward with, but we need to move forward with the study and continue moving forward with that. So I've received a proposal. It's not quite $70,000, but I've received a proposal to get that done. So, but we need to fund it in the CIP in order to make that happen. And then the Adobe Creek culvert replacement is the Adobe Creek is the one that runs along Friedensburg Canyon and then runs into HCA Park. And I believe that's one of the culverts up in Friedensburg Canyon, but that's part of our stormwater master plan. So it's the $40,000 is to initiate the design and the studies for that project. So again, in our 10-year CIP, it's programmed about a couple years from now to actually build it. Our water projects are pretty much staying the same. Oh, shoot, I missed that one. So that's supposed to be $70,000 for the water program as well, so oops. But the only add is we needed to add the California lead and service line inventory, which is another regulatory compliant requirement that was not anticipated, but it needs to be met. And so I met with Mike, and he told me that we need to add that to the CIP. And then for sewer, we're not looking to add any money. We're going to keep it at $800,000 from the sewer fund, but we're looking to do a manhole rehab program project, which is basically manholes that have been degraded through some sewer gases and other things that concrete starts to wear out. They get in, they pressure wash it down, and then put a lining on there. It's a very robust epoxy style type lining. And so this was programmed out for a few years, but in talking with Nathan, he wants to move forward with this rather than the sewer line replacement program. So we're looking at just swapping monies to in the same fund, but basically fund that project. So overall, I have these things listed. So here's the fund. So overall, if everything is funded and nothing's added, we're looking at an increase in the general fund expenditures for all projects by $846,000. Gas tax is proposed to remain the same. Local transportation is proposed to drop $250,000. So that's basically money we keep in the bank for a transportation project. That's something we might want to utilize for the mission drive when it's time to put some pedestrian signals or something like that. Measure A, which has a pretty healthy fund balance, we're going to increase that by about $50,000. The grant funds, which are already awarded, and that's about $400,000. And then we're adding, carrying over some transit monies for about $100,000 of that is for the parking lot. That's added, but the rest of it is was stuff that was already funded for vehicle purchases. And then out of the water fund, that one project is about $150,000 is what the proposed increase was. So that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Yeah, Roger, if there's been problems with pickleball courts as far as the erosion and the landslide coming down on them, why are you wanting to build it again right there? Why wouldn't you find another location within the park? It just seems like it's going to add to your cost and everything else, but I would just, if you're going to demo those, wouldn't you build this in another part of the park location? That's more suitable to...
We certainly could. This area is suitable for that location. It's next to the tennis courts. It's next to parking. We haven't seen a whole lot of landslides or erosion down there. What we've seen is that the drainage comes off the hillside, and
It was covered with mud this year, the courts. I think it was, is that not correct?
I was not aware that they were.
I thought there was a
covered with
lot
mud.
of mud that flowed down on top of those.
I don't think the slope didn't fail. There is a retaining wall that was constructed in order to create some area, but there certainly was some water flows onto it with all the rain that we got. But the only other location I could think is some of the other grassy areas in the park, in HCA Park. But in order to use the grant monies, we got to use them at HCA. We can't find another location within the city. That's not anything that we've considered. What we're looking at is, keep the paddle sports in the same localized area, if we had the drainage improvements that we've designed, we would likely not have seen flows onto the pickleball courts. Certainly not in the severity that we saw we got 2 rainstorms that had about 9 inches of rain contributed to it. So it's tough to keep anything dry at that point.
The emergency generators, the replacement, so you need 2 units, one for the Veterans Building, one for this facility.
Yeah,
Is
yes,
is
that's
that correct? And
that's what
these
was
are-
funded.
These are for redundant power outages, and this is why they're emergency? Because you're talking about solar. I'm confused with emergency generators and your solar plan. I don't, I haven't connected the dots. Can you do that for me?
Okay, sure. So the whole idea is, in an emergency, power goes out, there might be a second interruption, and then power clicks back on. So that can be either done by a diesel generator, or it can be done by other means. What we're proposing with a solar solution is a battery backup system, and that is not only fed by solar, but also still hooked up to the grid. So the batteries would remain charged at all times. So if power goes out, now the batteries kick in. So now we stay up. And then even if the power stayed out, so the grid goes down, we're still up, we're still functioning, and the solar panels would be designed, and how you design these things is you figure out, okay, what is your assumed loss? So we're assuming we would have to stay on for 3 days.
Thank you. I think your term generator threw me off with
Okay.
what you're trying to accomplish. It's a redundant opportunity for when there's a power loss.
That's correct.
Whether it's generation by diesel or by solar.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Roger, I'm trying to do the math here. If you look at the funds, and it's got current and proposed, and on page 96, it says water, 880 is proposed, current is 770, and I see a difference of 150. I can do the math on that, right? Water.
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, current 730, proposed 880, difference of 150. Measure A, current 593, proposed 643, difference of 50, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, general fund, current 1,650,000, proposed $2,011,000.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't that be a proposed change of $361,000?
No.
I'm looking at the math on the other ones. I see the difference in the current proposed. If the general fund in current is 1,650,000, and then the
So
proposed is 2 million.
1,165,000, and we're proposing to go up to 2,011,000.
Yeah, that's the difference of $361,000.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I'm looking at like,
No, I'm looking at page 96.
okay.
The math
So-
works on the water and the math works on the Measure A, but the general fund, it looks like the proposed change is 361,
Okay.
not
So
846.
I apologize, that's.
I know, you're looking at,
Oh,
sorry,
Big spreadsheet, which did work.
yeah.
yeah, that should be 1,165, not 1,650.
Oh, well, then that makes sense.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
on the other sheet, it had one.
Okay, so I'm not crazy. Well, I am crazy, but.
Yeah, well,
at
we
least
won't
I know
talk
math.
about that.
Okay.
Crazy as a fox.
All right, so current is 1,165.
1,165.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Roger, good job. That was a lot of detail. And you answered so many of my questions. I just had one,
Okay.
which was just looking for a little more insight why we would shift or prioritize the dollars to the manhole rehabilitation program over sewer line rehabilitation.
That's a very good question, and it's the reason why I shifted that. It was I reached out to Nathan at our sewer group and said, "Are there any changes that you want on the CIP?" And he said that current staffing levels and current needs are for the manhole rehabilitation. He has a large project in mind where he's going to line 45 to 50 manholes in the sewer system that's basically towards the south of town.
here's the way I think about it, and you can correct it. Seems like sewage line gets a lot of action. Manhole is, as needed.
But-
So does this imply our sewage lines are in really great shape?
So, having had just toured the wastewater treatment plant today, conversation with Nathan today as well as previously, we have a significant issue with INI, which is basically rainwater that infiltrates. It's I and I. It's infiltration and something. I don't remember what the other I is. Not Infante, I know that. But the idea is we have rainwater intrusion into the sewer system, due in large part to the failure of these manholes. And so Nathan's attempt to address these issues with the manholes will help reduce I and help keep the capacity during rain events lower at the sewage treatment plant.
Makes sense.
I like that a lot. That makes sense. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, let's take it out to the public then. I have a Mr. Barry Sigmund.
I'm not a public speaker. I'm just a person. I am a little intimidated. You're all dressed up in suits, and I look like I just escaped from a cruise ship. So I'm a little intimidated. I wasn't expecting to be the only person here talking about this. I thought there'd be more people, but a lot of people play pickleball older, and they're probably sleeping right now. So that's what I'm kind of going with. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America, and I've been playing at this park for about 3 years. And it's a serious sport. It's really gotten quite competitive, even though it was named after the inventor's dog, Pickles. But it's, I have ADD, so I can't do what my wife does, sit in front of a TV and do exercise and stuff. I can't do it. In fact, sitting here for 2 hours drives me nuts. So this is my way of getting exercise. I do 3 days a week. And I run around like a 16-year-old, and I play with a lot of people, and we have fun. We have probably 75 people that come in and out that play pickleball. The tennis courts are kind of empty. We see a few people here and there, but the pickleball courts are active. In fact, today I played for 3 hours, and it was so busy that we could only do 4 on and 4 off. Normally, 2 people stay on who won, and then 2 more people. But when you have so many people like we had today, we have to go 4 on and 4 off. So a third court would be really nice. The courts did not flood, by the way. What happened was you have dirt around the courts that's never been finished. So when it rains, and we had rain, we had puddles, we had mud. So when you go onto the courts, you're bringing the mud onto the courts, and it's just no good. It acts as sandpaper. And that's kind of what happened. We have, my wife plays pickleball, Denise, who spoke a couple times, she plays pickleball. And in fact, if we have just one more person, we can have a game. But, okay, anyways, so we're not going to do that. We do have people from all over. Somehow they find out about this, and we get people. We got a guy from Pennsylvania. We have another couple just came today that we saw for the first time. And it's really, I was in an acute care setting for 25 years in the hospital, cardiopulmonary. And one thing I saw is people who sit around and watch Oprah, they die pretty quick after retirement. You really have to keep active. And this is a way for us to keep active. We do have all ages, but I do mornings from like 8:30 till 12, and a lot of people working then. So I'm being buzzed. Let me answer that. Oh, no, it's not. Anyways, so we have a lot of people that come and find out about it. It's a great way for people to stay active, because like I said, if you watch Oprah, and that's all you do. It's a short retirement. But I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak, and now I'm going to go to bed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brad McVeigh.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you. It's been a while since I've sat in front of a council or a board. So I'm going to read my notes just to conserve time for all of us. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your commitment to the city of Solvang and our communities. The residents, locals who utilize our retail, recreational, other opportunities here on a daily basis. We really appreciate the work that you do for us. I'm here representing a number of people, probably several dozen, that play pickleball. And rather than fill your council chamber with a whole bunch of people that are going to pretty much say the same thing, you get me. I just wanted to say again, thank you. I live slightly outside of the city limits, but many of the people I'm speaking for are Solvang residents and people in the community. We all understand the tremendous need to assure infrastructure and public safety, those needs are met. However, almost as importantly, quality of life issues should be considered. On that topic, I want to express our support of the capital improvement program, specifically related to the HCA pickleball courts. Since the creation of the two courts in 2021, they have never been fully completed, are already deteriorating, as you've heard, and are still surrounded by temporary plastic construction fencing. These two courts are the only public courts in the greater San Ynez Valley. They're utilized by hundreds of locals and visitors weekly, especially in the mornings, evenings, and weekends. The courts are listed in the databases of all the primary pickleball associations in the country. This includes the USA Pickleball Association, the Professional Pickleball Association, the Association of Pickleball Professionals, and Major League Pickleball. As a result, we get visitors from all over the country playing at these courts, which we appreciate and enjoy. According to the Association of Pickleball Professionals, there are 36.5 million pickleball players in the United States. Pickleball participation has grown over 158.6% in the last 3 years, with the largest group of players consisting of people ages 18 to 34. It remains the fastest growing sport in America. As of February 2023, there are 10,320 places to play available to the public. Solvang is one of them. We encourage you to improve the capital improvement program to include improvements or development of the HCA pickleball courts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Elamine?
Okay. I'm here again to talk about Skid Mesa. I noticed in this CIP that Alisal gets a lot of work done out of the general fund, and Skid Mesa gets nothing. But we both pay into the general fund, and if you notice, there was nothing for Skid Mesa out of the CIP. We're never getting anything out of the general fund. Where does our money go? We pay lots of taxes up there in Skid Mesa, but we get nothing extra out of the general fund. And why is that? I'd like to know. I'm just asking the question. It wasn't answered tonight. And also, if I can recall, I was told that the roof on the gazebo in the park was going to be completed by June, when we had the Juneteenth. And now I'm hearing again, I don't know what today is, I'm confused, but now he's given us a new date for this same roof that should have been on there. So it appears that a lot of these CIPs keep roaming or rolling, or maybe there should be called CIP rollers, because we get a CIP, you guys approve it, but we don't get what is in the CIP. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe 10 years from now. Maybe I'm just ahead of myself. So I just want to say that we need to take a look at when we're saying we're going to have something in the budget, that before we approve the next budget, then we want to know what was done and what was not done. Like I said, the roof has not been done, and it's not going to get done. And my other thing about is our Skid Mesa. We've been waiting on enhanced lighting for over 12 years. And Roger has been working on it for as long as he's been here, and we don't have it. And I know that nothing gets done without a work order. So when you come up here and you talk about studies and all of this, if you don't have a work order, we will never get our enhancements. So I would like for the city council, maybe in a meeting or something, to bring this up on the agenda. When will the Skid Mesa residents get their entitlements, what we pay for our enhanced lighting that we've been promised since 2012? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do play pickleball.
Do we have anybody else in the public that would like to speak? It doesn't appear we have anybody on Zoom. All right, we'll take it back to the council for final questions, comments, or a motion to approve the CIP.
I'd like to thank the Planning Commission for their help in putting this together and the work they've done. And I thank you, Roger, for the detail that you've given us today.
So I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-1227 and approve the amendment to the FY 23-24 CIP and approve the budget adjustments to the program.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
No.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, moving on to item 6D. If you would introduce that for us, please, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible action to adopt resolution number 23-1228 to approve the memorandum of understanding MOU with Teamsters Union Local 986 for the term August 1, 2023 to June 30, 2026, and authorize the city manager to execute on behalf of the city. Adopt resolution 23-1229, setting and adopting the range schedule and benefits for non-represented employees effective August 1, 2023. Adopt resolution 23-1230, approving the budget amendment.
Staff report.
Okay, so in the late 1990s, the employees requested representation from the Teamsters Local Union 986. And usually annually, the Teamsters and the city negotiator, which is usually legal counsel, city manager and the administrative services director, negotiate for the benefits for the employees. The city negotiator and Teamsters Local Union 986 tentatively agreed to the new terms for the MOU, which are provided and attached with the MOU and summarized below. Yet this year, both parties agreed to a multi-year contract for the next 3 years, ending June 30th, 2026. The wage increase for this fiscal year was agreed at 6%. If approved, the 6% wage increase for 2023 and all other monetary benefits will be paid retroactively to August 1st, 2023. For the 24-25 fiscal year, a 4% increase was agreed on, as well as the 25-26 fiscal year. There was also an increase in the housing allowance from $600 to $750, which is a $150 increase. Increase in employee-only coverage from $1,000 to $1,100 per month. Other rates to move to 75% or $1,100, whichever is greater, for employee plus one and family coverage. Add a 5-year tier for longevity pay and increase longevity pay by $75 per month. $1,500 net lump sum bonus. They agreed to add a 15-year combined service for vacation. And they added the CPI language, if it exceeds 7.5%, the union can request a reopener. As part of the city's fiscal management, when unbudgeted items are approved, budget adjustments are required to fund the changes. With the original budget for 23-24, there was a 4% increase that was adopted in the budget. The general fund salary and benefit increase totals $140,737.51. The water fund increases totals $57,982.31. And the sewer fund increase totals for all the benefits is $51,085.56 for a total budget adjustment of all three funds of $249,805. If this MOU is approved, we'll need to do a budget adjustment. So with this item, there's actually three items that you would need to approve.
Questions for the staff? Yeah, we have. I think we're pretty much done with this. I'm sorry, did you want to say?
I don't have any questions. I have a comment.
We'll take comments. What the
Well,
heck?
so for the public, there was a lot of discussion and work in the negotiation and the process to get us to where we are right now with these adoptions proposed here. And I do want to just underscore that the city is doing our part to acknowledge some great employees and acknowledge the fact that cost of living is real. And we're doing our part to try to, ask our great employees to deliver their best every day. So I do want to also thank our leadership team, who was took lead in most of the heavy burden on the negotiation, which was Randy Murphy and Dave Fleshman. And Wendy, I know you and your team did a lot of the work to you run the numbers whenever we needed them. So it was a lot of effort here, and I also want to recognize and thank the union leadership, Jeff and Nathan, who I think represented our employees well and negotiated in good faith, and were extremely forthright and transparent and cooperative. So I think we have a great agreement. I think we did emphasize that we put high value on our workers and that this is a great place to work for the city, especially for knowledge workers with great benefits. So just want to highlight, come and stay here, and also to do a lot to make sure we were encouraging retention and tenure for our people. So thank you for getting us all the way here.
And one of the things I forgot to mention was that if you do adopt item 6D2, that's a resolution setting and adopting the salary range and benefits for the non-represented employees, the same as the represented employees.
Okay, no more questions. Do we have anybody in the public that would like to make a comment? Nobody on Zoom, it appears. We'll bring it back to the council then. Last chance for comments or a motion, and we need a motion on each individual resolution, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
On the off chance that there's dissent on one of them, it probably makes sense to take them one at a time.
Okay, can we have a motion to adopt Resolution 23-1228? First one.
27.
Where did you get 27? I've got 28. What are you reading?
I'll make a
Well,
motion.
well,
I'll make a
well-
motion to adopt resolution number 23-1228.
Second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, now we need a motion then, please, on Resolution number 23-1229, setting and adopting the range schedule and benefits for non-represented employees. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve and adopt resolution number 23-1229.
Second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, third and final resolution in this case is Resolution 23-1230, approving a budget adjustment. Do I have a motion on this one, please?
I'll move to approve Resolution 23-1230.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent, Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona,
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, let's move on to 6E, please. If you'll introduce that, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible action to adopt Resolution 23-1231, authorizing a budget adjustment to include the cost for the general plan update and EIR consultant contract.
Staff report.
Thank you, Mr. May. I promised to be shorter than my last presentation. This is another budget adjustment. We're looking to put some general fund monies forward. Back in May, Council approved Amendment Number 5 to the original agreement for Minter Harnish. Minter Harnish is our consultant that is doing our general plan update and the EIR. So we approved that amendment by, it increased the contract by $164,102.49 for a total contract of $883,699.49. Then when the budget, on my birthday again, was approved, the budget line item, the account that was drawn from was basically zeroed out with the new budget. So we need to add money in so that we can actually pay this contract that we've agreed to pay. So that's basically where what we're asking is to amend the budget to be able to accommodate the amount of the agreement as amended, so that we can complete our general plan and the EIR.
Get that done.
So that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions of the staff report? No? Questions from the audience? No. Questions on Zoom? No. We're going to get through this one that quickly? Wow. We'll bring it back to the council.
My only concern is, if I may,
Yes.
you know, I know we voted on this and the money was approved for that. Did anything else get affected by that money being taken away with this money being put in? Because it was an oversight. How did the oversight happen that we didn't get into the general plan?
The oversight happened is that this, basically all the switchover that happened this last year, this was an account that was, was not a public works account. I've taken over the leadership of this. So when we're looking at budget stuff, I take a look at public works stuff.
Yeah.
And this was honestly, it was city manager stuff, and Randy certainly, he's not involved with the general plan as much as he could be, or certainly as much as Zena was handling it and processing it through. So it basically just kind of slipped through the cracks. It's like everyone's, hey, we're worrying about the stuff that we're concerned about and we're looking at, and it just kind of slipped through the cracks.
Got it.
So Sophia was here. She was the one that was paying the bills on the current PO. And when it came time to,
Like, oh, shoot, this isn't there.
so it's just,
I
it's
get
a
it.
matter of just all the different moving parts just moving on us.
And I'm not saying 293 is not a huge number. It's a huge number,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's that big of a number that it affected any other appropriations that we were looking to fund because of this. So, and just, stuff happens.
Yeah.
Okay,
A
got
lot of
it.
stuff
Thank you.
happened at the General Plan Advisory Committee. That was, Claudia and I are the representatives on the GPAC, and I can back up everything he had to say, and I've got a few more comments in private. So, we'll move right along.
Got it.
We're on, what, 6E?
Need a motion?
We've got nothing coming in. We need a motion, please.
I'll move to accept this resolution 1231 for the budget allocation.
A second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown.
Yes?
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Claudia Arona absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona.
Yes.
Mayor Infante.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. Let's go on to item 6F. If you would introduce that for us, please, Madam Clerk.
Discussion and possible action regarding adopting Resolution 23-1232, opposing ballot initiative 21-0042A1, AKA the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act.
Staff report, please.
So I received an email from Dave Molinax, Cal Cities. This item has actually qualified for the November 24 ballot already, and the league is actively soliciting support for opposition of this particular measure. It's called, arguably somewhat deceptively, the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, and it being promoted by the California Business Roundtable, the lobbying arm of the largest and wealthiest corporations in California. A brief summary of what this might do is that it adopts new and stricter rules for raising taxes and fees and may make it more difficult to hold violators of state and local laws accountable. Anything passed after January 1 of 2022, which potentially could affect our Measure U as well, is subject for secondary approval, and if not approved under the new conditions, would become invalid. No requirements for voter approval include when an existing tax is applied to newly annexed territory, when an existing tax is applied to a new service or product, for example, when a utility user tax is applied to a new service. All new or increased taxes adopted, I've already mentioned this, after January 1 of 2022, must include a sunset date. There's a whole lot of other explanations. Bottom line is, League of Cities says it's bad. They're asking for a resolution in opposition. They've asked all cities. I agree that this is not the best option for our community in particular, in general. So I'm bringing it forward. I don't currently have an ability, obviously, just to go ahead and do these things. That I will have an item at a future meeting where we adopt a legislative platform, and we don't necessarily need to bring these separately, and we just would advise you of those things. But this one is critical enough to bring it as a separate item. And I'll try and answer any questions to what I can. I'm sure Mr. Fleischman can.
We'll put it on Dave. Any questions?
I have a question. I've looked into this as well, and this is such a general statement that it may make it more difficult to hold violators of state and local laws accountable. I can't find where that reading is, what that means anywhere. But this will, and this, if this passes, it'll make it more difficult to hold violators of state laws accountable. City Attorney can help us out with that?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, it inhibits local agencies' ability to dictate their own futures regarding funding. So if the voters of a community say, we want to have a police tax, for example, this might inhibit that, and it might make it more difficult for the public agencies to fund law enforcement efforts, fire protection efforts.
That's not what it says, though.
But makes it more difficult to hold violators of state and local laws accountable because we would not have the funding to support the services to go.
That's where it came from.
So it's a comprehensive approach that the California Business Roundtable is looking to take. This
Because
has
we
been,
can't raise taxes, we can't hold people accountable for their misdeeds.
as one absolute result of it, yes, because then it's not just police, it's not just fire. You think about building codes.
Understood.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of things that are funded that would be very difficult to continue if this passes.
And there's also language that talks about what the fee schedule can be. So if we come in and we say we need to increase the fees for development, for instance, there's tighter restrictions about what is reasonable, and we may not be able to cover our actual cost because of the definitions that are included in this legislation. So that also plays into the question you asked, Councilman Clark. So it's an effort for developers to keep fees down, but that doesn't necessarily mean things get more affordable for their clients.
Any other questions? No?
No, it appears that this is not something you'd want to judge the book by the cover on this.
Not by that cover, no. I have one request for public comment. That's Ms. Elamine.
Okay. Again, I live in Skid Mesa. And guess what? Proposition 218 would be harder to enforce. So guess what? The LLMD would be gone. You couldn't charge me that. Can you believe that? All of that money that you get from me now, you wouldn't be able to get. And you're going to make it seem like it's a bad thing because you won't have all this money to waste anymore? Okay. So I just want to make sure you guys know that HOAs are one thing and LLMDs are another. They're not the same. You have a professional on HOA here, and I'm a professional from LLMD because I've owned 2 homes that were LLMD, and it was 30 years ago. So I just want you to know I'm very, very proficient with LLMDs, and I am not going to get off of it. So if this law passes, I won't have to come and talk about Skip Mesa LLMED anymore because you won't be able to enforce it anymore. And we're not getting anything for it anywhere. Our Brightview doesn't come, and we're going to talk with him tomorrow, and he won't even tell me who's coming. He says one person from Brightview. Is it a manager? Is it a worker? Is it somebody who answers the phone? I can't get a direct answer. I get general information. And I think that you guys collect a lot of money, and I think that we should get more direct information and more specific information. I think someone who signs the contract for Brightview should be here tomorrow for our important meeting. Because at first, it was told that I was the only one who complained. So tomorrow, it may just be me. But just in case another person shows up, it would be nice for us to know who we're going to be talking with tomorrow. And it would be nice if each and every one of you guys would come out and see maybe just me complain about the Skid Mesa LLMD. So I'll be walking the streets for this one.
Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for comments or approval of this particular Resolution 23-1232. Okay, I'll move that we accept Resolution 23-1232, opposing the ballot initiative.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
No.
Councilmember Claudia Rona absent. Mayor Pro Tem Elizabeth Arona?
Yes.
Mayor Infante?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-1.
Okay, so the last item on tonight's agenda is AB 1234 reports. Do we have any of those?
Not for me.
Just wanted to report that I attended the EMA GSA meeting this past week.
Okay, if that's it, look at that, 9:15. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The city council meeting is closed as of 9:15.